These women have spent their entire lives in luxury. Trained from birth in the art of pleasure, they know nothing of the world beyond the king's royal court. But two of these women are about to die a gruesome death. The name of their executioner is one you might have heard: Sun Tzu, warrior, philosopher, and creator of the art of war. This ancient text holds the keys to victory in war and life. Now, the art of war's tactics and strategies are revealed in graphic detail to help solve a military mystery. Were the outcomes of America's greatest battles foretold some 2,000 years ago? Did the art of war prophesize the Nazis' ultimate doom? Predict how the North would win the Civil War? And predict why America would be defeated in Vietnam? Understand the art of war's lessons, and you will prevail. Ignore them, and you fight in darkness. King Helü, ruler of the Chinese state of Wu, agonizes over a growing threat. A hostile neighbor is poised to invade. Desperate to defend his kingdom, Helü summons one of the greatest military minds in history, Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu is important because he has a cohesive, holistic philosophy of how to approach strategy. If you listen to Sun Tzu, if you follow his principles, you will be victorious. If you ignore him, you do so at your own peril because you will definitely lose.
Sun Tzu assures King Helü that he can train the smaller Wu army to overcome and defeat the larger invading force.
King Helü asks Sun Tzu, challenges Sun Tzu in something of a mocking way. He says, "You claim that you can turn anyone into a soldier. Can you turn these palace women, these spoiled, soft concubines, into a fighting force?" Sun Tzu answers, "Of course I can." He simply shows the women what the important maneuvers are. He chooses the two most senior of these concubines to serve as platoon leaders and charges them with making sure discipline is observed in their units.
But when Sun Tzu orders the exercise to begin, the women simply laugh.
Sun Tzu said, "Well, okay, maybe my instructions were not clear to you. Now, let me rephrase again my instructions to you. In simple language, he told the concubines, when the drums is sounded, you as concubines must assemble as soldiers with your spears, with your swords, and fall in line." Second time, what happens? They still giggle away.
But Sun Tzu says, if the orders are unclear, it is the fault of the general that the troops do not obey. But if the orders are clear, and my orders have been clear, it's the fault of the subordinate officers that the orders are not obeyed.
There is only one way Sun Tzu can convince the concubines that he is deadly serious. To Sun Tzu, war is a matter of life and death. This is the key principle of his teachings. Once understood, everyone from the leader down to the individual soldier will be motivated to win. Sun Tzu appoints two new officers. The women now follow his orders without hesitation.
And the big takeaway from this incident for King Helü is that even a state like Wu which is relatively weak in terms of numbers compared to its larger neighbor Chu, can nonetheless wield a disciplined, effective military force if they take Sun Tzu's teachings to heart and implement them throughout their military.
While these women will never see battle, Sun Tzu has proved his point. King He Lu appoints Sun Tzu as commander of the Wu army. Sun Tzu must now make good on his promise to train a force of 30,000 to fight an army 10 times larger. The strategies and tactics he uses in this showdown become the foundation of his masterwork, The Art of War. Sun Tzu writes The Art of War around 500 BC. The book is written on vertical bamboo strips, each the length of a chopstick. Each strip contains 15 to 25 Chinese characters. The strips are then painstakingly stitched together. Inside the 13 chapters of The Art of War lie the secrets to success.
Basically, if you understand the art of war and the principles in it, you can predict how wars or battles will turn out. While each of these principles is important, think of them as cords in a strong rope. Individually, they may be strong, but when you put them together and use them holistically, they're unbreakable.
For more than 1,000 years, Sun Tzu's secrets are kept hidden, made available only to emperors and authorized scholars. They surfaced in the 8th century in Japan, and since then, their insights have spread throughout the world. More recently, The Art of War has spawned hundreds of books that apply its teachings to sports, politics, and business. Today, it's part of the core curriculum at many war colleges, including West Point. But as we shall see, Sun Tzu's advice isn't always heeded, which often leads to disaster.
I think throughout time, if generals had listened to Sun Tzu, you would probably not have seen a lot of the bloody wars of attrition that mankind has suffered through. He was very focused on how do I achieve my goal with the minimum amount of resources used, with the minimum amount of destruction.
Sun Tzu's principles are about to be put to the test. Sun Tzu has trained the army of Wu to defend itself against the powerful state of Chu to the west.
The outset of this war between Wu and Chu, when Sun Tzu is given command of an army of Wu, it seems that Chu holds all the advantages. Sun Tzu's army is only about 33,000 men, where Chu can field forces of hundreds of thousands of men.
Leading 300,000 Chu warriors is a power-hungry and corrupt prime minister named Nang Hua. Nang Hua cuts a swath of destruction through the Chinese countryside. Outnumbered nearly 10 to 1, Sun Tzu could prepare his defenses and wait for the Chu onslaught. But being Sun Tzu, he does the unexpected. He invades Chu. Sun Tzu doesn't attack Nang Hua's army head-on. He chooses soft targets, like remote outposts and border crossings.
It would be unwise for Sun Tzu to try to seek a decisive engagement early in this war by attacking the Chu army directly. He simply does not have the mass necessary to do that.
Sun Tzu attacks with blistering speed and brutal efficiency. Nang Hua immediately launches counteroffensives, but when the reinforcements arrive, Sun Tzu's soldiers are gone and attacking the next location.
By keeping Chu constantly shifting its forces back and forth on the frontier, he frustrates their leaders and gains at the same time a much better picture of the way the Chu armies will likely fight.
After every battle and skirmish, Sun Tzu gains a better understanding of his enemy.
He downplays the value of direct attack and puts the emphasis on maneuver, surprise, deception.
All warfare should be based upon the intellect. In fact, the greatest battles of all time have been won by the brain and not by brute force.
That doesn't stop Nang Hua from trying. He eventually launches 100,000 soldiers to try to crush the guerrilla attacks. It's about 500 BC in ancient China. Sun Tzu's hit-and-run campaign against the kingdom of Chu is working. Sun Tzu's adversary, the Chu Prime Minister Nang Hua, grows frustrated and loses some political allies.
Nang Hua and his generals are increasingly frustrated by Sun Tzu's cross-border raids. The constant harassment is undermining the morale of the Chu troops. Money is being drained out of the Chu treasury. In some cases, the best of Chu's warriors are either killed or captured by Sun Tzu. Faced with this dilemma, Nang Hua is forced to turn to Chu's allies for men, money, and materiel.
Throughout the countryside, there is fear of where Sun Tzu will strike next. Leaders in the royal court begin to lose faith in Nang Hua, and allies begin to defect to Sun Tzu's side. But this disloyalty doesn't come without punishment. Nang Hua deploys his army to destroy a rogue ally in the north called Sai. As the capital is about to be attacked, the Duke of Sai calls on Sun Tzu for help. Sun Tzu now faces a seemingly no-win situation. If he does nothing, his ally will be destroyed. If he tries to save his ally, Nang Hua will crush his army. But for Sun Tzu, the solution is simple. He leads a small force towards Sai to act as bait to draw Nang Hua away from the city.
This is this whole idea of, in a sense, achieving kind of a maneuver dominance or controlling enemy movement by your own maneuver.
Nang Hua immediately stops his siege on Sai and mobilizes his army to intercept Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu saves his ally without drawing a sword. But will he be able to save himself?
While Sun Tzu has succeeded in drawing Nang Hua away from his siege of Sai, it seems that he's maneuvered himself into a trap. He's surrounded by Nang Hua's forces.
Sun Tzu has placed his men where there is no possibility of retreat. He has placed them on death ground. Sun Tzu studied every aspect of war, including the psychology of men facing imminent death.
Sun Tzu says that when the men know that they are in death ground, they will be transformed. They'll become overnight fearless fighters, that they will fight with all they have in order to win.
On death ground is exactly where Sun Tzu wants his soldiers. The battle between the kingdoms of Wu and Chu rages. Sun Tzu's small Wu force is on death ground. They are surrounded by the army of the Chu Prime Minister, Nang Hua. But Sun Tzu isn't worried. While Nang Hua's army attacks, Sun Tzu's main force is headed to capture the Chu capital of Ying.
When Nang Hua realizes that Sun Tzu's main force is bent on the attack on Ying, he has a tough decision to make. Obviously, he wants to kill Sun Tzu. He wants to wipe out this force under Sun Tzu's command. But while he doesn't think the Wu force, the main body, is much of a threat to the Chu capital, he's afraid that the defender of Ying, another general, will win credit for defending the capital against the Wu forces. As a result, he races back to defend Ing.
It will be Nanghua's most colossal mistake of the war. Like Nanghua, generals throughout history have charged headlong into battle without having all the information they need. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu imagines the role of the supreme general, a man who must be intelligent and cunning, never rash nor arrogant. Exactly the opposite of Sun Tzu's adversary in the Wu-Chu War, Nanghua.
Sun Tzu is deadly against impulsive behavior, rash behavior, or making the army march double quick time in order to seize victory. For in Sun Tzu's mind, victory comes from deep thinking, from detailed calculation, from long preparation.
While Nanghua has a larger, more powerful army, Sun Tzu shows he is the master by outwitting his enemy. Nanghua rushes to his capital, believing Sun Tzu is about to invade. But the master never had any intention of attacking such a well-protected city. It's a ruse to lure Nanghua into a trap, and it works perfectly. Without warning, more than 20,000 of Sun Tzu's elite warriors ambush Nanghua's forces. The surprise attack throws Nanghua's men into confusion.
What we have now is a series of running battles between Nanghua's much depleted forces and Sun Tzu's main force. In each battle, Nanghua gets weaker, Sun Tzu gets stronger, and the Chu capital lays exposed.
Sun Tzu joins up with his main force and attacks the disorganized Chu army. Finally, Sun Tzu has won the war. Through preparation, deception, and indirect attacks, Sun Tzu pulls off one of the greatest upsets in history. But as mysteriously as he arrived, Sun Tzu leaves and disappears.
There's some speculation as to why he disappears. One theory is that the behavior of the leaders of Wu shock him, discourage him. When the king of Wu enters the Chu capital, he's dumbstruck by its wealth. He becomes greedy and covetous. It would seem then that Sun Tzu has provided this ambitious and potentially corrupt king with a dangerous instrument, this new military that he's honed. He also sees infighting breaking out, and perhaps this is the moment that Sun Tzu retires from this life and goes instead to write what he sees as the lessons of the conflict between Wu and Chu.
Sun Tzu knows that war can lead to disaster. Sometimes, the best way to win is not to fight at all. This is perhaps Sun Tzu's ultimate secret.
Nations often rush into wars with very little concern for thinking through what the total cost is going to be, not just in dollars, but also in terms of human suffering, not only to you, but to the civilians and children of the country in which you're fighting. It's the kind of thing that we find in Sun Tzu, that before you go to war, think this through, and then ask yourself, is the reasons for which you're fighting worth the total cost of the war? Or is there another way?
As Sun Tzu says, the angry can be made happy again, but the dead cannot be brought back to life. Still, some historians believe the genius behind The Art of War wasn't actually Sun Tzu, but a collection of different strategists. While his existence is debated, his legacy isn't. Today, The Art of War is read by generals, CEOs, and professional sports coaches. And while it offers us insights into the battles of the past, it could prepare us for the wars of the future.
Sun Tzu can teach us not merely to know ourselves, to know our strengths, our weaknesses, what we're capable of doing on the battlefield, but constantly reminds us that is as important, if not more so, to cultivate a deep, fundamental understanding of our adversaries so that we might better achieve our objectives. That's what I think makes it a possession for all time.
Throughout history, Sun Tzu's principles have guided the outcome of war. We must embrace his wisdom or fight in darkness.